it's not about large format versus traditional retail. I think rabbits, which I think is interesting, So the story goes that imagine you're in a garden, you've got in and you see lots of rabbits running around and you want to catch a rabbit. What do? You start running after, you see that white rabbit, you say, wow, this looks good, let me go after it. And you keep running after it, but the white rabbit keeps going ahead of you. And then you suddenly discover another rabbit come close by. This one is gray, and you say, I think gray is a nice color. I'll go after that one. So you start chasing the gray rabbit. But even that rabbit continues to elude you. And then you suddenly see this nice brown and white rabbit, and you say, you know what, I never like gray too much. I think I'll go after the brown and white one. What happens? At the end of the day, you're very tired. You've worked very hard. You've been running all day chasing rabbits. What have you caught? Nothing. Okay? So the story goes that if you want to catch a rabbit, the way to do it is this. Identify one rabbit. Go after that rabbit, catch it, put it in your pocket, and then worry about the next one. And maybe there's good advice in this for all of us in the business of retailing. Don't try and do too many things too soon. We all get caught up in buzzwords, Putting an electronic point of sale, that's the big one, let me try and do that. No, but sprucing up the store, that's the big one. No, tying up with somebody, that's the big one. No, I think becoming self-service, that's the big one. You can keep trying to do too many things. And quite like catching too many rabbits, what will happen is, at the end of it, you would not have caught anything. So good lesson to remember. Identify a rabbit, okay? And go after it and try and catch it. After you pocket it, then worry about the next one. If you find that you can't catch the rabbit, change your tactics, but don't change your rabbit, okay? We all get tempted to give up very easily. We try something, and then when we can't succeed with it, we try and say, you know what, this isn't gonna work for me. Let me let go of it, okay? But that's one. What's the other one? I think the second lesson for all of us would be to play to our strengths. I think it never works when you try and become like someone else, okay? I think that's another mistake that we can all make. We try and, so small trade looks at the big guy and says, let me try and be like him. Ain't gonna work, okay? Success comes not because you become like someone else, but because you become a very good you, okay? There are things that you do very well. There are things that that are core to your identity, and that's the one that you need to go after and make sure that you get it right, okay? What's the third one? I think the third one for me is talent. I saw Shiv refer to soft skills. I think it's a huge challenge to get the talent right. On the one hand, you have, you have these large format stores where there was not enough experience, seemingly in India, and therefore you kept getting in expatriates to come and run the business. And on the other, you have the challenge in traditional trade very often, where the poor Velu Swami who used to run that store finds that his son has gone to engineering college and doesn't want to continue in this business. So what do? Okay? So a lot of times you will find that traditional trade is coming under pressure, not necessarily because the format is under stress, but because perhaps a succession plan is not in place, because talent has been hard to find. And I think it's important, therefore, to find ways to ensure that there's talent and there's adequately skilled talent which can actually make it work. And for me, the last one, the last point about how to ensure that traditional trade, large formats, everybody actually coexists and survives, is to remember that old line, where someone said that the business of business is business, okay? Which really means that, we are all here at the end of the day for a purpose. And usually that purpose is not necessarily a bad thing, and that purpose is to make money. I think it's important to ensure that there is profit at the end of that exercise, okay? And that's a lesson that perhaps all of us would need to remember, because sometimes you can get caught up in this feeling that it doesn't matter, we'll make money some other day. We do things which seem bizarre, and we justify it by finding some other rationale for doing it. But good lesson to remember, the business of business is business, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is to actually tell you a little bit about the panel that we've got here. 3 people who are extremely knowledgeable in this space, and I've got Ram. Ram is from Vodafone. And what else can you tell about retail when you find that the dog reaches places which no one else can reach, right? So, here's a man who's got small stores, Vodafone stores, and I think, I must tell you this, I've been in the business where we sold soaps and stuff all our life, and cola. And here's this telecom business which comes in and really increases distribution like nothing else. And suddenly you find you can get a recharge almost everywhere. I'm sure you'll also tell us a little bit about what's happening in the entire mobile space, where you can actually buy without even getting into a store. And that's going to be something very interesting for us. I've got Mr. Srinivasa. He's the CEO of Vivek's, iconic company. And I must tell you this, that like I said earlier, as a little kid, I remember Vivek's was almost like, it defined the rules of durable marketing. Okay? And they did things which were far, far ahead of what's happening over here today. And I'm sure it'll be extremely interesting to see, how Vivek's and Mr. Srinivasa are actually their take on what's happening in our industry, in this industry, and how they plan to actually continue to win. Okay? I think it's interesting, and I heard this being mentioned earlier, that it's a lot of the new, supposedly large format, kind of guys, none of them makes money. Okay? And they're probably building their business out to sell someday or to get valuations or some other metric. But the truth is that it's only when you run a business like the one that Mr. Srinivasa runs that you recognize the need to ensure that, hey, there's money coming in at the end of the day and we're making money in this business. And our third member of this panel is Shomik. Shomik is from Kevin Care. Again, I think you couldn't get a better person to tell you about the importance of small stores. I remember in the early 80s, that's the company that actually started selling these little cushion pillow pouches of shampoo, okay, across small stores in the state. And that's something that large companies like Unilever and Procter & Gamble actually started saying, my goodness, what's this man doing? And suddenly, here was a company that redefined value. And I think that's maybe another message we need to try and get right. Suddenly, I don't know if you know this, but normally when you buy, you are supposed to get economy when you buy large packs. In the shampoo business, you actually get economy when you buy the small pack. Okay? It's interesting. Not true. Could be the reverse also. And suddenly you find that everybody is changing the rules of the game. And you suddenly have people who are targeting shampoos at let's say, the bottom of the pyramid, and actually they are paying a premium to buy those shampoos. So pricing, what's the role of pricing? How does it work? I'm sure we'll have interesting stuff to hear from him. I'm also personally very keen to hear from him. As a company which started off selling to all these small shopkeepers and really built up a brand from there, how do they manage, having to deal with all these large format stores who all seem to want everything for free with payment terms, maybe which will be like, pay me when I'll pay you 3-4 months later. And if you don't give it to me in any case, you know what? I've got other brands waiting to come into my shelf, so I may not even want to keep you.